It's still Good Morning, Nigeria, live on the network service of the NTA. And to begin our conversation on reviving cotton and textile industry, let's quickly take a look at this excerpt put together by Oyeyemi Ajayi.
Cotton is a low margin industry, so you only make your money when you have economy of scale. You have the rotors. We have 9.6 million rotors. We have only 12,000 rotors in Nigeria. It is not the duty of government to buy rotors. There is already existing incentive for importation of these industry-based equipments in our trade policies. Tariffs, they all enjoy different preferential treatments and tariff treatments. You have the weaving looms. You have 2.7 million weaving looms globally. We have only 8,500. We have knitting, 101,000, have only 80 in Nigeria. So when you look at these countries have been able to enhance their CTG sector, bring down the cost, the unit cost, they invested massively in this infrastructure.
We are not short of policies. We've had policies, but we are not implementing policies. So it has been a policy somersault that has not been consistent, and that is why where we are now.
As a manufacturer in textile for the last 46 years, I established my own industry myself. I concluded that there is internal and external sabotage against all the policies started right from Chief Obasanjo's period to date. Most of the policies have been frustrated at one stage or another.
All this kind of insecurity is lack of jobs. We have the jobs from cotton textile garment. We have millions of jobs that can be given to our indigenes and citizens of Nigeria. We have 84 million square kilometers of fertile soil in Nigeria. But we are not treating the soil, we are not testing the soil, and our farmers are having poor yield. Poor yield is our problem.
We have to do everything possible to bring the sector back. You know, there are some basic things that are supposed to be there. Like Dr. Kingsley was talking about the cotton length, fiber quality, trash content and everything. There is a peculiar equipment that we are using to determine all these qualities, but they are not there. The high volume instrument.
So they must be there.
They must be there to increase the competitiveness of Nigerian cotton.
All right.
Okay, well, I think the only way to reactivate this value chain is in two areas. That is patronage, make sure that procurement policy are tailored to patronizing locally textile goods. And then secondly, we have issue of taxation, multiple taxation. Already the present administration had a committee to review the tax. We have to stop this minimum taxation whereby companies that make genuine losses are taxed. So I think taxes should be based on profit alone, and also there's a need to fund our educational system so that we can produce qualified workers that will work in the industries.
Yeah, thank you, Oyeyemi, for that excerpt from our last conversation on the cotton and textile industry. And we already have our guests seated in the studio and other parts of the country. In the studio this morning, we have Dr. Kingsley Uzoma as the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Agribusiness and Productivity. Dr. Uzoma, you are welcome once again to the program.
Good morning, and thank you for having me. Good morning.
All right. Also joining us from Lagos is the DG Nigerian Textile Manufacturers Association, a member of Cotton Textile Garment. I'm talking about Alhaji Haman Ali Kwajafa. Alhaji Kwajafa, you are welcome to Good Morning Nigeria once again. Alhaji Kwajafa, you.
Hello.
Alhaji Kwajafa.
From Lagos, we move to Kano, where we have Seidu Datjo Adama, the chairman, Adama Textile and Garment Industry. Many thanks, Seidu Datjo Adama, for joining us.
Thank you and good morning, Nigerians.
Okay, let's just stay with you there, the chairman of Adama Textile and Garment Industry, because, you know, the last time we spoke, you had so much to talk about, but we couldn't, speak much. But I want you, I'm talking about Seidu now, in our Kano studio. In our last conversation, we established the state of Nigeria's textile industry. But the question is, how expedient is it to have these moribund industries jacked back to life?
Thank you very much for this question. First of all, training is very important. Financing, enabling environment, and many others. But to cushion them all, patience and continued or sustainable support from government and the general public. I want to appreciate in the first instance the effort of this government to see to the training of garment and textile. Exactly 1 week, we started training under the ITF project approved by Mr. President. We are grateful to that. That will kickstart the training and taking the advantage of exporting labor to other countries in terms of tailoring. When I say exporting labor, people may not understand. I am putting it in this way. There is a great opportunity in the Middle East, Europe, and America for Nigeria to export its skills in garments. That is what federal government is now trying to do, and through ITF. Already, Bank of Industry is doing also a good job. But like the special advisor said in the past, Honorable Izoma, that they are doing it once again. So if you want to reinvigorate the sector, this training is very important. What we want is now to see that government go to the next step in the training of textiles. We have lost a lot of skilled labor in the past years. I could remember quickly to mention, I met one of my staff on the way driving Kenapep. He sold his car. He was a graduate of chemistry. He was working in the finishing department. We can no longer sustain him. He has to sell his car. He told me he's a father of 5 with a mother and himself. He has no job, but he has to sell his car to go into NAPEP. You see, we have lost him. Now, the next step of reviving this sector is training. Training will give us the opportunity now to have good young men and women to be in the sector. Another thing is allowing the money already established, already there, to the best of my knowledge. If I am wrong, I can be corrected. The money is either with the Office of the Accountant General or with the Central Bank. I'm not sure. This money, we are made to know, or we are sure of, had been generated from the Customs and Excise under the Textile Development Levy. This levy is supposed to be a fund that will support textile. It has been there for years. The money is there idle, or it is being used for something we are not sure. So if that money will be now supported by our bill currently in the National Assembly, which we want to have a textile commission. Textile commission will help us out of so many bureaucracy. Private sector does not know bureaucracy. Things that can be done in a year takes us 7, 8 years to do. One thing is avoid ignoring presidential orders. We also want the special advisor to please take note of this. Last dispensation, we have reached up to the stage of president giving presidential order 3, and I think also 5 or 7. But that one, as he said, it's not implemented. So the implementation strategy and methodology of all the past policies is one of the main challenges, followed by an easy way of sabotaging government efforts in two major things. I always say that agricultural sector and garment sector is being eyed by saboteurs of Nigerian economy. Nigeria will not be allowed to clothe its population. Nigeria is not going to be allowed to feed its population. So what I will insist in saying, I had been saying it, that support the agricultural sector and support the textile sector by developing the cotton production and then supporting the whole value chain up to the packaging, packing, finishing. Now, if you go to any textile mill in Nigeria, to the best of my knowledge, those that are existing, have challenges in finishing, packaging, and finishing, packaging, and some few other things that will make the product attractive and competitive in the market. So we have a little way to push the federal government by advising them to continue with patience. Patience in the training, patience in the financing, patience in the implementation or amending the implementation methodology or providing proper implementation strategy so that all the policies, all what is expected to support the sector is being touched one after the other, leaving no vacuum. This is what I can say for now, with a strong appeal for the patience to the government to see that all efforts done in the past are supported again and again.
Thank you very much, Alhaji Saidu Datijo Adhama, for your opening comments there. Of course, the target of this conversation is reviving the textile industry, and you have highlighted some of the issues at the moment. And I like Alhaji Hama Ali Kwajafa, who is the DG, Nigerian Textile Manufacturers Association, and member of Cotton Textile Garment, to let us know, what resulted in the decline in the industry. Some say the structural adjustment programs, as well as other policies of government, are responsible for where we are. I want you to please highlight some of those policies that affected the textile industry negatively, just so that we can learn from them, I'm sure. All right. Okay. Alhaji Kojafa, we hope your connection gets better so, you can get back to us. But let's come back here in the studio. Dr. Uzoma, you listened to Alhaji Saidu Datijo Adhama, speak about some of his concerns. He talked about training of personnel, financing, patience, and all of that. Now that this government is planning to revitalize this industry, what areas, is government looking at to get this industry back on track?
Thank you, and thank you, Alhaji Datijo. The government, under the leadership of His Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, wants to take a holistic view of the entire sector. Previously, in the past administrations, not the last in the past, every administration has always talked about how to revive the sector for the sake of creating employment and enhancing its contribution to GDP and foreign exchange earning in the country. However, on a critical diagnostic analysis of those interventions and policy framework, we discovered that they were disaggregated or fragmented in silos. For instance, the foundation you have, just like you have in the oil industry, the upstream, midstream, and downstream. The upstream, the production, the cotton, you cannot begin to talk of the downstream without factoring the upstream. Just in the oil and gas sector, Dangote refinery in the downstream is having problem because we are not producing enough. So also the issue of financing, you find out that the issue of financing mostly is all about the trading, marketing, without providing financing on the retooling or modernization or technical upgradation of existing facilities. You know, we have the ginning and pressing mills, you have the oil mills, the spinning, the rotors, all of them, because we've downscaled our investment in this sector over the last couple of decades. So we are operating with outdated technology. Like when the International Cotton Advisory Committee came to the Vice President conference room, somebody pointed out, told them, no, the problem, though our cotton varieties, some cut 8, 9, 10, 11, 13, that's the fiber length is short 27 to 29. However, because of the ginning machineries we are using, they're even cutting them to 20. So that's why international marketability is not there. Also talking about investment, nobody has talked about investment. There is a standard, you know, commercial standardization of instruments testing in cotton. You know, have we partnered with International Cotton Advisory Committee to make sure that you have all the required high volume instruments for standardization of the testing, so that, because the price and production of cotton in the international market is affected by the quality and testing. So you have to have grading, yarn standardization, grading, the very basic quality characteristics like color, like fiber length, fiber strength and thickness, all those things, degree of contamination and trash index. We have not invested in such things. So the industry players had also not helped matters because government is not the expert in the sector. The expert in the sector always and will always be the private sector. The suggestion for financial intervention had always centered on giving funds to companies without taking this in holistically. If we don't address it holistically, believe me, we will still be running. I will tell you another thing. Nobody had talked about the trade policy. We're talking about, people talking about armed forces importation. However, I will give you the global market for textile. The largest importers is the European Union. Last year was 287 billion US dollars. United States of America, 145 billion US dollars. So Europe is importing 2 times more than the US. And Europe is just 4 hours away from us. So we take advantage of the access to these major markets. And in the Europe, again, we have 2 trade policies that, you know, this is what I had expected that we should be pushing. There is a trade policy called GSP, Generalized Scheme of Preferences. And it has 3 sub categories: standard, GSP, GSP Plus, and GSP EBA. Nigeria is only on standard GSP, and what you enjoy in standard GSP, there is no special preference for the CTG sector in the standard preference, in the standard GSP. You can only negotiate tariff cut, partial or full, on 2/3 of your export to that country. However, GSP Plus, as textile and textile articles as a line item in the GSP Plus trade policy, is 0 tariff. So if we had worked hard, pressed government to make sure our negotiators, trade attaches to European Union, had been able to, you know, navigate Nigeria from the point of standard GSP to the point of GSP Plus, which all the indicators Nigeria tick the check boxes, that will give us an instant 12% tariff advantage to import from China, from Turkey, and from all these countries. And what does that mean? Though we have a higher cost of production in Nigeria, quote unquote, if it's produced $100 in China and it's produced $110 in Nigeria, you will still sell at a price competitive distance to the Chinese importation, because you factor in the long logistic cost, and you also factor in the additional 12% that China is supposed to sell, because that Chinese own with tariff is landing at $112, whereas the one from Nigeria manufactured at 10% higher than the Chinese is still landing below the cost price of the Chinese own. And then you have the EBA, but you are not qualified, we are not least developed country. The GSP Plus, GSP was instituted in 2014, expired in December 2023, and was extended to 2027. We are not there. There is also another one, the European Economic Partnership Agreement. In fact, one of the benefits is because it gives confidence, like giving a lot of comfort to an investor for the foreseeable future, because it is not time bound, it is endless. So it will not help countries to attract investment, because this investment, government gives $70 billion. It's not enough to activate. When I told you last week that 500,000, the required investment to have in place to get that 7.2 to 8.22 billion per annum in revenue from this is in billions of dollars. So that 70
so
cannot
what is government doing to attract this investment?
That is why I said that President Tinubu is taking it up from a holistic point of view. For instance, if you pump in all the necessary fund without addressing these shortfalls in the trade policies, we will still not be very competitive. So we will work on moving Nigeria to GSP+, we work on rectifying the EPA. So, and then on the funding issue, once you have all these policies, I told you the Arise Industrial Conglomerate, the Vice President, they're investing 1.3.
Do you have a time frame for all this?
Which we have fragmented it into short term, mid term, and long term.
Okay.
So the short term is getting these policies, short term is getting industrial gap analysis on the technological shortfalls for our primary industries within the sector, the generaries, so that we know what is lacking, how we can retool them and upgrade them to meet up to the global standard, so that the fiber quality that will be coming out of them will meet the global standard. And then we have the midterm, we have, in the short term also, we need a policy, because the policy will also, all these things I'm talking about, the shortfalls, these are the things that the policies will bring to bear and address them comprehensively, so that an investor within the sector can have that level of confidence for the foreseeable future. So, and also the issue of 500,000 hectares, bringing them to cultivation, that can happen as soon as possible. This year's planting season has been lost. So we are starting now to plan effectively and efficiently to make sure that we get back to farm. The issue of low quality seeds, the next thing we'll do is assessing the library of germplasm from countries of the same agroecological condition and the same altitude level. Like we have in Garua, Maro, in Cameroon, in parts of Ivory Coast, they have some varieties that, because the last variety that developed in Nigeria was in 2003, that's 21 years ago. But these ones, they have new varieties. While we tax our research institute, the Seed Council, the IAR, the Raw Material Research, the National Biotechnology, all of them to come up with variety. But it takes time, so we cannot fold our arms and say until we develop a variety. Whereas we know that if a variety A can work well in Garua and Marua, operating in the same altitude and the same soil and agroecological conditions in Nigeria, what we need to do is to go and take those varieties from them and run immediate adaptability trial and begin to, and they have the ones that are fantastic, the gening percentage of up to 44%.
Dr. Zuma, sorry to cut you. In all that you have said, you're talking about what we will do, what we will do. What is being done at the moment?
That is what is being done is the process has started. That is why we have identified these challenges and opportunities, because it is not something you wake up today and say, oh, I'm planting 500,000 hectares today. We have started the process. The process is identifying the challenges in the sector and the opportunities, and what are the best least cost pathway of leveraging those opportunities to the advantage of the Nigerian cotton and textile economy.
Is the government doing all of this on its own, or you're partnering with people like Seidu, Datijo in all of this?
Yes, that was why when the International Cotton Advisory Committee came, it was supposed to be a meeting of the Vice President, meeting the Vice President alone, but all the major sectors in the industry, Haman Kwajafa was there, all of them, generalists, millers, textile, garments people, they were all represented. Federal Industrial Research Institute in Oshodi was represented, Raw Material Research was represented, Minister of Science and Technology was represented, Ministry of Trade, Ministry of Agriculture.
Fantastic. So with all of these plans on board, just a minute, you have still not told us the time frame that all of this will begin to materialize.
It will begin to materialize next year, because this year, like the cotton training in ITF and also another grant from World Trade Organization also for that, we have to retrain and retool the basic facilities. So by next year, we'll begin to see this thing yield its fruits.
Okay, by next year. Okay, by next year, we begin to see the all the efforts yielding fruits. Let's bring in the DG, Nigerian Textile Manufacturers Association, and members of Cotton Textile Garment, Haman Kwajafa. Okay, I believe that you have been listening to the conversation so far, and you have heard some of the identified issues, challenges, bedeviling the cotton and the textile industry. In your own view, it is speculated that the structural adjustment program is also part of it, and part of the decline and probably the unstable government policies. What are your own views?
Very much. Can you hear me? Hello? My own view clearly is that we must be competitive. Nigeria must be competitive to be able to do business, and the ease of doing business department is doing its best, but they are not doing as well as what we expect. Because when you are competitive, you must benchmark what you are doing with other countries, and it must be equal with them for the prices to be the same. If you are competing with, say, Vietnam, for instance, you must have a very good enabling environment so that our customers, our manufacturers can export and play at even playing ground with other countries, so that they don't carry their goods to, say, other America, African Growth and Opportunity Act, American Growth and Opportunity Act given to us by Obama since then. And they always come back with their goods, because our prices can go the same, because we have very costly infrastructure and enabling environment in Nigeria. Cost of price of power, even in Nigeria, is different domestically. The price of power in Kano, Lagos, and Onitsha are different. So we must have tariff that is the same for us to be very, very competitive. If we are not able to achieve that, we'll find it difficult to go into real business. And the African Growth and Opportunity Act, which we are expecting to come for Africa, they are looking at Nigeria as the largest market. And if we're not careful, people will come and enjoy our market, and we that are manufacturers here have not been able to compete with, say, Mauritius, Madagascar, or even Ethiopia, because they have what is called textile park, and their governments protect them in the sense that if there's any increase, government should be able to take it up and not allow the increase to affect manufacturers. This is what's happening in the world, that they are not backward, and Nigeria continues to be backward and to close because we don't have the enabling environment properly. Vietnam has a very big enabling environment. That's why Samsung from America is coming to Vietnam to establish a factory. These are the kind of enabling environment that we need in Nigeria. When you say government is not part of business, or government is not supposed to be involved in business, it is wrong. Because it is the duty of government to provide enabling environment for every manufacturer to set up. So once we have that enabling environment, we can work. Just like in the last meeting, last discussion, we found out that Nigeria is planning a textile park in Funtua, for instance. But what you see up to today, since last 5 years, has been just a big gate. And no infrastructure has been developed in the textile park in Funtua. So definitely, if we are prepared to do business, we must put our acts together and look at international standards. Because what we are talking about Arise now, Arise is not on ground yet. What textiles have been existing for long. Arise is just coming up. What happens to the other companies, the other factories that are being set up, that are there already? And you have to look into their problems for you to go ahead and achieve the needful for Nigeria and for companies to thrive. Because the low-hanging fruits are important. It's not just about a new investor coming in, and we have not seen the acts yet. So we cannot depend on them 100%. We must look at what is on ground and try to bring them up and continue. Otherwise, they will now collapse, and we will not be able to meet up the challenges. So in the past, there have been lots of loans, foreign loans, and foreign loans have been cheaper. But then with now the devaluation of the naira and the exchange rate, you find out it's very, very challenging for businesses to thrive. So these kind of things must be looked into very well, because those coming from other countries have incentives from their countries. They give them incentives when they are exporting into another country, importing to other countries. And because of these challenges in Nigeria, any fabric coming into Nigeria, Nigerian Textile Manufacturers Association is supposed to have 10% textile adjustment tax from the customs. And that kind of fund is supposed to defray the cost of manufacturing textiles in Nigeria. But since then, nobody has seen where the fund is going to, that 10% that we get. So this kind of fund is supposed to defray the cost, not necessarily asking government to defray for us. We have a textile adjustment tax, and that's what is supposed to be used. If we have high tariff on power, that fund is supposed to adjust so that we can compete with other countries. For instance, Uganda, they are charging 4 cents per kilowatt hour of electricity as their textile park. That's what the government has done for them. And that 4 cents per kilowatt hour must be there for you to compete with other countries. Nigeria is about 21 cents per kilowatt hour. So we must defray all these kind of costs to be able to compete. If we don't defray them, there's no way our businessmen can thrive. Because, for instance, our dealers have run away. Our dealers have run away because they know they're going to meet up. Instead, they steal our designs, go to China, manufacture with polyester instead of the cotton. In fact, they drop the cotton totally. Now they fill our markets with polyester products. And we cannot get polyester in Nigeria because we are not refining petroleum in the crude in Nigeria. Nigerian crude is refined outside. So those byproducts, like this polyester, we cannot get it from Nigeria. What LMA is producing is not of commercial quantity. So it cannot be used in factories here. So the myriad of challenges has to be looked into for us to come up and for companies to work with 100% capacity instead of just 20% capacity. We should have 100% capacity and do business with other countries, and then the factories will thrive, and we'll be able to pay our workers. Even this 70%, 17,000 minimum wage will be difficult for most of the manufacturing companies to pay, because we are not in business. Our products are counterfeited. Our own market has been taken. Even Lagos, Kaduna, Kano, Onisha, we cannot have the market. It's been taken. So nobody can sit idly and see our markets being taken and nothing is being done about it. All these people are investors. They have brought in FDI, foreign direct investment. All these foreign direct investment we are trying to bring, the arise of foreign direct investment, they are just coming in. What happened to the old ones? We have lots of investors. I said there are more than 24 textile companies now.
Great points, Alhaji Hama Kwajafa, you have made there. The issues are enormous, like you have highlighted, and we hope that the government gets it right this time around. But let's get to Seidu Datijo Adhama. I know that you listened keenly to Dr. Ozama when he spoke, extensively about what the government plans to do. I want you to put holes in some of the comments he has made about reviving the textile industry. Do you really think that, the way he has, outlined it smoothly, that's how smooth it would go? Let us know what you think the likely challenges will be, as being a key player in the sector. And then earlier when you spoke, you talked about, staff of yours who now drives a keke napep instead of, being in the textile industry and doing so much in refining products. Do you think that with the way government intends to go with all of this, it will bring back, people like that, your staff, back in the industry? Or do you think that having a new crop of, industry players is the way to go?
Well, these are things that need to be fully discussed. But what we are saying, like Mr. Kojefa has just mentioned, what happens to the old ones? Like my factory, I'm 46 years in the business. Let me take up from the micro level. What I mean by micro level is local level. Patronage. If we will look at this situation one after the other, let's see, how can government patronize locally made products? There are many ways. Address them. How can government fund the sector in full, meaning that the circle has to be full, not only the money. In the past, I mentioned finishing and packaging, forgetting to mention value addition. Proper value addition is needed in the Nigerian textile sector. But when it comes to funding that sector, we find challenges because there is no sufficient foreign exchange to allow us import the necessary machinery to support the value addition, the packaging, the finishing. All these are added to our problems and challenges. Most of Nigerian textiles, I'm not saying all, have good texture. We can be competitive in the texture, in the real manufacturing. Our cotton can do some of the good textile materials because they were doing before. Many textiles in Nigeria were producing for the army, for the first-class citizens, and so on. Why not now? The machineries are more advanced now. We can buy them. But the finishing, when you go to some countries, they will advertise machines. When you want to buy it, they will say, oh, this one is not for export market. Let Nigeria understand this. This is not for export market. And you ask us to liberalize our economy. You ask us to devalue our currency. You ask us to deregulate our economy. And when we go to the economy, we ask for certain kind of machines. They say it's not for export market. It's for domestic market. That machine will produce maybe 100,000 meters in an hour.
We have lost. We have lost him.
This and see how do we come into the same platform in our markets. We are struggling to have between 25 and 30% market share of textile. Look at Nigerian population. If you have 200 million people to clothe them, Nigerian manufacturers are only asking about 1/4 of that population to clothe. Then what will government come in, what type of policy government will come in with so that that 25 to 30% market share, it will be exclusively reserved for Nigerian textile markets. There are many ways of intense incentives and so on that our local product can get into the market. But allowing free market economy, like they say, to be only operable in our country, not in their country, this is not fair. One other thing we should not take note of. I still believe, and I'm confident, that if policy will be
Well, I think we're having some issues connecting properly, network issue there with Datijo. Now let's get back to the studio. Uzoma, you have listened to, some of the challenges faced by these manufacturers concerning the textile and the cotton industry in Nigeria. And they have listed these protecting the local manufacturers. They want to find out what government is doing to protect the local manufacturers, what are the incentives government is providing, and also the issue of funding and policies. How do you react to all these issues?
Well, I will start with the funding issue. Like I had always said from last week that why most of these interventions fail, because we take them bit by bit. It has to be comprehensive, it has to be holistic. You have to do the root cause analysis. You know, in the last administrations, both Jonathan, both President Buhari, there were interventions in the sector. What is the performance rate of those loan interventions? Because the interventions did not do a holistic root cause analysis before intervening. It's not the issue of throwing money. A lot of money was sent for cotton farming. What is the percentage performance of such facilities? So you cannot say you want to throw money to factories. That is why President Tinubu is taking it up holistically by doing gap analysis of the existing ginaries, pressing factories, textile factories. What are the standard limitations they are facing? So that if a company comes, if that factory based on gap analysis should now discover that it is better to throw it away and get a new one, or to retool it, or to, you know, reconfigure it to modern distance. But if you don't do that, you just throw in money. It's just like you buy a new house that is dilapidated. You have to come with a structural engineer to take a structural analysis of that house before you begin to say whether repaint or whether you renovate. If you don't do that, it will still come back, because that may have a foundational problem. That I will give you an instance. Last year, Vietnam export of textile materials was 46.79 billion. Import was 28.04. So the net FS influx is $18.75 billion. Look at Pakistan, a lower margin, 1/3 of their export. Pakistan was $16.24 billion. Import was $2.96 billion. You have a trade advantage of 13-point-something billion in excess. This is 46.8, call it 47 against 16. The net difference, 13-point-something, 18-point-something. So Pakistan, when I talked about trade policy, looked at all these things where they have competitive advantage and they focused on that. That's raw material. So Pakistan retweaked their textile policy to enhance cotton production, fiber production, the fiber quality, the color, maturity, brightness, degree of yellowness.
Because of time,
So,
Dr.
so
Uzoma.
how is government retreating its own policies
That is why
to achieve this?
we started this. We are doing bit by bit structural analysis of the industry, of the ecosystem. Because you cannot just recommend to Mr. President, go to farming, go to garment, just like also the garment. You cannot train a qualified expert, you know, within 1 month or 2 months. We have started. It's Alhaji Datijo that stated it. It is because Mr. President understands the needs of retooling. Because our tailors in Nigeria, you all know, sometimes when they sew, the bottom will go out. You don't export it. They can't compete.
The target of all of this is to increase export,
to increase local production, import substitution. Because
but how do you want to do about what do you want to do about the local consumption? Because you know the non-implementation of the 2017 Executive Order 003 is responsible for where we are at the moment. So how do you want to change that?
I will give you an instance. This government is just 1 year. So it cannot begin to tackle problem of 10 years immediately.
Okay.
And if you say you want to implement that immediately, holistically, can we meet up the local consumption, local demand?
I think we have to leave this conversation at this point. Thank you very much, Dr. Kingsley Uzoma, Senior Special Assistant to the President on Agribusiness and Productivity. I'm sure we'll have you some other time because this conversation is a continuous one and we want to see progress in the textile industry. Of course, Alhaji Hama Ali Kwajafa, DG Nigeria Textile Manufacturers Association and member of Cotton Textile Garment. Thank you for being a guest again today. We do sincerely appreciate you. And of course, Seidu Datijo Adhama, Chairman